And I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start right off with introductions. I understand we do have a quorum, so we'll go to my right.
I'm Stephanie.
Does someone have a device logged into the meeting? Okay, good. Oh, we're good. Sorry.
Andy. Go ahead.
There we go. Andy Schrader, Petaluma.
Shirley Johnson, Rohnert Park.
Steve Keith, Rohnert Park.
Pete Gang, Petaluma.
Nick Thayer, Sonoma County, 5th District.
Neil Hancock, Katati.
And in the back, we have staff.
BC Caps.
Anna Oliva.
Ross Clendenin.
And some, Great.
Tanya Nara.
thank you. And I'm representing District 3 myself. Do we have any public comment today on matters not on the agenda?
Go ahead, sorry. So last meeting, we had elections for chair and vice chair, and we elected Jake, and it was bugging me that I couldn't figure out why I couldn't recognize Jake. And so I went back through the attendance records for meetings. And if I did my math right, as of last time when we elected him as our vice chair, he had attended 4 of the previous 12 meetings, which, again, if I did my math right, as of today, since he's not here, that brings his attendance record to 5 for 13. And I just wanted to raise the question of A, if we have any rules about leadership, and B, if we don't have any written strict rules, if we have any standards.
Thanks for the comment, Nick. Ross?
I can weigh in on that, Mr. Chair. I think that's definitely noted. I think the opportunity in every June, we send out a notice to the appointing district or jurisdiction, both, saying, hey, would you like to renew? This is who you have, and the attendance is noted. So that, that would be the opportunity if whoever's nominating is gonna make a decision related to attendance. That's when that would happen, and that will be happening in June. I'm not trying to get him kicked off the committee. No. I don't care about that. I'm asking about how we leadership within the team. Yeah, beyond that, we just started having a chair and vice chair. Tom's our first chair, so I do not believe we have anything in the charter related to moves once it begins.
I'll make a statement. We're all volunteers on this committee, and it's a big county, and many of us are busy with multiple obligations. So it's wonderful that we can get here and do this. I think this is a very valuable forum. And I know I have had personal trouble getting to these meetings sometimes because in my case, it was just, for some reason, it wasn't popping up in my calendar. I had it on the wrong day or something. And so because we were meeting so infrequently, I was missing meetings. So that's my personal experience. I haven't done that in a while with this committee, but I understand that sometimes attendance can be difficult for some people. But I think I appreciate you bringing the matter of norms around attendance and a sense of, if we're not really showing up then maybe we shouldn't be holding the seat and keeping someone else from being here who would be more interested. I noticed too that David Rabbit's seat, his other position is vacant. And so maybe staff, you said you're going to be reaching out to the jurisdiction to
yeah.
renew. And I think if we might, those of us who are kind of talk to other climate folks around the county might make an effort to recruit for these open slots and these slots that have poorer attendance too. So.
I would add one thing, which is that if you have someone that's interested, they only have to reside in Sonoma County. It is not actually district specific. So if someone is, obviously District 2 would need to approve that, but if you have someone that's interested and they either have a relationship or would like to establish one, that's fine.
Any further discussion on that matter? Andy?
I also noticed that he hasn't been at many meetings. So is it, given that this body can probably establish its own organizational guidelines, is it appropriate that we how would we amend those guidelines to suggest if you're going to be an officer that you should show up for a certain percentage of meetings? Is that kind of where you're heading? Yeah. So it's not about the nominating agency, but it's about the who we're putting in leadership.
So if there's not more discussion on it now, I think what I'd like to do is take this back to staff for further discussion and reach out to Mr. McKenzie, make sure that he's aware of the discussion. And then perhaps next meeting, we can come back with some structure to how to respond to this valid point that's been raised.
Sounds good.
Very well. Thank you.
I see no other public comment online or in the room.
Without further ado, then we'll move on to item 3.1, approval of the March 14th meeting note.
So moved.
So moved. I noticed one member attendance issue, and this is, I guess, not formally on the minutes, but it's in the table. I noticed that June Rashers is recorded as not having attended, but in fact, she came late, but she did participate in the meeting.
I think the minutes say that the meeting was called to order at 11:33 p.m.
That's both noted. Thank you.
So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. David Leland abstaining. Very well. Measure passes. Thank you. Okay, now we get to this fun part of the meeting where we hear from our members and by jurisdiction what's been going on in their areas. Let's see, Neil, you want to give us an update on what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Yes, in Cotati, there was a climate fair. It was called the Climate Ready Cotati Fair, March the 29th at the train station. Very successful with a real buzz for that small space. And I hear even people were getting off the train because they saw there was something going on to catch the next train along. So it covered a lot of different groups who were just from Recology to local repair groups, that sort of thing. So very successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The Fix-It Fair happened last Saturday in Forestville. I unfortunately was not able to make it, but I heard that attendance was really good. It's about getting stuff fixed instead of buying a new thing. So everything from bikes to power tools to water heaters to whatever. It's about building a culture of fixing instead of buying new. And then a climate adjacent thing that actually prevented me from making it to the Fix-It Fair was that the Dry Creek Rancheria, a band of Pomo Indians, just opened a new, well, just had the ribbon cutting for a new housing development just outside of Cloverdale. It's specifically for the elders in their community. But they're gonna have a little farm next to the housing development. I forget how many houses there are. It's like a few dozen, I think, and they're all solar paneled, and there's a beautiful community center. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I have a few things from Petaluma. Finally, after years and years, we are finally finalizing our active transportation plan. I've been paying a lot of attention to that whole process. It's gratifying that we're finally getting close. Overall, it's a good document, but it doesn't go nearly far enough in accelerating the transition from car, truck dominated streets to active transportation, people dominated streets. It's right now, okay, item number 2. Right now going on in Petaluma among city staff and community groups is preparing for a meeting in June in Denver of the All America City Award through the National Civic League. Apparently, Petaluma made application, and the city of Petaluma is one of 20 finalists. It's all about, the theme is strengthening environmental sustainability through inclusive community engagement. So anyway, it's taking a lot of bandwidth among senior city staff right now. Last weekend, Petaluma had its Future Fest Community Climate Action event put on by Cool Petaluma in partnership with the city. I wasn't there, but I understand it was really successful, well attended, and there was a big effort this year to include the Spanish-speaking community. I wasn't there because I was in charge of zero waste efforts at the Wine Country Century, which is an event that draws 2,300 cyclists. So I worked really hard on helping riders and everybody else determine where their individual piece of waste goes. And it's both an actual waste diversion event, and it's also partly education. So it was a lot of work, but I guess I can feel good about that. The end.
Steve Keith, Runner Park. Just last month, the Cotati Runner Park Friends of the Library had their spring sale and did as good as they normally do, being the best bookstore in town. Actually, the only bookstore in Runner Park. But we did move a lot of books, kept them out of the landfill, and the company that picks up the ones that we don't sell, they do get attempted to get resold again in bulk, online. So that was a plus.
Yeah, more on Rohnert Park, and kudos to Petaluma. I think Reagan called it the All-American City. You guys remember that? Dating myself. Let's see. So Rohnert Park, one thing that came to my attention was Cotati Rohnert Park School District is putting up solar panels, but we had problems with our first proposal because they got nervous about what's going on at the Fed level. And so they pulled out, and now we've got somebody else that we're looking at, but we had to scramble. And so just a heads up for districts that are looking at solar panels. Good luck. And other than that, we've got lots of good stuff going on at the bicycle pedestrian. We've got lots of bike lanes being put up, and our planners are working with us about making it a bike-friendly community. So Steve and I are working hard at that, and it's panning out. And so thanks.
Did that solar contractor have concerns about federal money, or was it political?
The credits, yeah. Mhm.
Andy?
So Pete gave the update from Petaluma, so I'll give a few updates on some state bills. There's a bill called AB 306, which Schultz is the author, which was pushed through the assembly really fast. And basically what that will do is freeze code updates for 6 years officially. And then if you add in the triennial process, it's effectively 9 years. So if you're working on reach codes, if you're altering your reach codes because of the Berkeley decision, this would put that off for almost a decade. It's a really bad bill. And if your local council or supervisors are interested, we're having a coalition call with elected officials, and we're going to request a meeting with Senator McGuire. So if any of your elected officials are interested in joining that call, they're all welcome. Number two, there's a bill called SB 500, which is a really innovative approach to rate making. It's called performance-based rate making. It's a Rocky Mountain Institute initiative, and it basically would change the way that investor-owned utilities can operate in the state of California, so we can reduce rates, because right now they raise rates to bring profits to their investors, which is required in corporate rules. But performance-based rate making would make sure that rate payers are prioritized first, and also they need to hit certain benchmarks to be able to raise their rates. So that's all. And that one's from Henry Stern.
Does anybody on staff know if 306 and 500 are on our county's legislative horizon? There are advocates?
So 306 is a bill that our board took an initial position on at the last board meeting and the position is oppose unless amended. I know this will also be on the legislative agenda item for our board meeting on Monday. So based on the board's feedback, that position could change, but that's the current position. I have not heard discussion of, is it SB 500 or
SB 500.
I don't believe that
SB
one has
500.
been discussed by our.
That one's brand new.
Yeah.
So
Right.
which board was that, Tanya?
That's
Our SCTCA board. Yeah, so at our April board meeting, the board reviewed a number of items and took a position on that one. And then it's back on the agenda, the full legislative platform this coming Monday. At the next
It's
board
back on
meeting.
there. You take public comment there?
We do, yep, it's a public meeting, so.
Okay.
And the agenda is online, if anyone is interested in.
great. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Okay, so updates for Healdsburg. This past Monday was our city council meeting, and it opened with the proclamation of May being National Bike Month, and there was a photo op, and that was really great. At the same time, we're trying to get our first new bike lane in many years on March Avenue, which is in the north part of town. A lot of mixed income families living in that area, and there's still a big debate on how much parking might need to be removed to make that bike lane happen. So we're continuing to advocate for that at City Council. Our city staff is kind of turning over right now, which is a bummer because we've been working a lot with them over the past years to build relationships. We lost our assistant city manager to the county, and now we're losing our utilities director to, he's moving on to, I think, Palo Alto. So that's been hard, but we're still getting new, he set in motion, that utility director, a lot of really cool projects, like we're getting 10 new charging stations in town, on the city-owned lots. And what else am I gonna say? The Climate Action Healdsburg, which is our kind of umbrella group for all the climate activists in the city. We're revising our mission statement right now and kind of looking to the future in a series of planning meetings, and wondering how we can also work with other organizations within the county and the state and the nation as things are changing really fast. So we're still active and meeting, and I'm hopeful about making some changes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I I don't have a lot to report specifically on the city of Sonoma, and Tom is way more intimate with that at this point and a much more granular understanding. So I'll leave that to him. But I will mention that Sonoma also is having a repair fair set for May 17. So and it appears that Zero Waste Sonoma has been is behind all of this, has been organizing all of this. So I think that maybe is why it's popping up all over the place. But anyway, it's a great thing. I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Western Massachusetts, and he says they have a repair fair kind of thing going there as well. So it's a cool thing.
Great. And then I'll just report out on Sonoma. Our Climate Action Commission has formed some ad hocs. We're looking at a number of different things. I'm on two of them. One focused on water conservation, Cash for Turf program, which is administered regionally through the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Water Partnership. And the other one that I'm active on is looking into the climate budgeting concept. And so we've got a very initial draft report that we meet next Wednesday. So what I'm trying to do there is get a sense of what we're already spending money on in the city that is climate related. And it turns out that many of the cities are already doing this. We all contribute money to the regional water saving partnership through our water rates. Many of us have opted into Sonoma Clean Power Evergreen as an additional expense. In the city of Sonoma, that's $13,000 a year of extra revenue, according to our Sonoma Clean Power rep. And then there's other places that we are already kind of built into our budgeting process, other activities that historically we may not have thought of them as part of our climate strategy. So I'm just trying to do that accounting to get clear on what we're spending money on right now. And so then we can look at our climate strategy and say, oh, how are we going to get this done if we don't have any money to do it? So that conversation's just begun. I'm not sure we'll be ready to have much impact on this year's budget cycle, but I'm trying to lay the groundwork for future budget cycles. And I'm just bringing it to this body because climate budgeting is something I think all of our jurisdictions should be starting to think more about. Let's see. I also had personally the opportunity to attend a Rocky Mountain Institute national discussion on heat pumps and the state of the art in heat pump program design. And so I'm looking forward to talking with BC offline about some of those things as we talk about the building electrification action plan. So that's a bit of a transition then into our next item, unless there's any questions or comments from anybody. We'll move on to item number.
Yeah, let's just ask for public comment.
Public comment, thank you.
To be sure.
Very well. And then we'll go on
I see
to
that.
item number 5. Thanks.
Want me to share it, BC? You can use.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
You were able to share.
I got it right here. Yeah.
Here, it's fine. I'll slip up here.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Ross is going to bring up a presentation. Excellent, thanks, Ross. Let me just. Very good. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Betsy Taft, Climate Programs Manager here with SCTCA. I wanted to, I'm just noticing I need to update my my title slide there. Let's see, so I wanted to bring a brief update on our make sure this microphone is on. Wanted to bring a brief update on our equitable building electrification action plan. I presented in depth at our last meeting 2 months ago. I wanted to just give some updates on where we progress in the last 2 months. So progress has been slow but steady. We have made quite a few improvements. So immediately following this meeting 2 months ago, or shortly following it, we had our next meeting of our staff advisory group where I met with staff representatives throughout a number of the different jurisdictions to get their feedback on the information that was presented. Would have been very similar information presented at this meeting, and got some, and so I'll go through some of those that input in just a minute. We also then identified a number of equity kind of focused individuals and a number of technical contacts that we have who we have prepared a review packet of kind of our proposed actions and goals and sent that out to a number of individuals to seeking kind of a detailed, seeking their kind of review at this point. First, the first slice is kind of looking at those equity and social issues. And the second then is kind of more number of individuals who were on our buildings committee from the Climate Protection Initiative about 1.5 years ago, and are kind of professionals that are within the electrification industry. The other piece, progress that we made was at our meeting, last meeting, we spoke about there was a brief draft survey that I presented that was based upon the Sebastopol electrification survey. And I think following that, this meeting, we made a decision that we really did want to have a survey kind of to add into our public engagement, but that the version that I had prepared that was identical to Sebastopol was still a bit lengthy and long and was going to ask the same questions. And so we did a very simplified version of that. It has been posted on our website, and Ross has been helping to push that out to get some feedback and engagement. And so that survey has been kind of is moving forward, and we have been working on that, and it was highlighted in our release. It will be highlighted in our next monthly newsletter that goes out in prep for this board meeting. Let's see. This slide is a bit just kind of background, and I think these are, I just wanted to include this for a little bit of background. Many of the things that are being advocated for as part of this electrification plan are really looking at, in general, how do we transition from natural gas and propane equipment to efficient electric equipment with the electricity from that's used to power those appliances, then produced via renewable sources to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, both at the production level and at the end use level. So we're talking about things like converting furnaces, natural gas furnaces to electric heat pumps, converting hot water heaters to heat pump water heaters, stoves and ovens to using induction cooktop, clothes dryers to the new heat pump clothes dryer technology, thinking about alternative methods for heating pools and spas. And then it's also and then the key there is that once we move to electric appliances, then we can look at the power that's used for those appliances, make sure that's as clean as possible, and then also to integrate battery backup systems for energy storage as part of these systems, which then allow for a lot more flexibility in the way that they're used and allow people to really truly manage their energy use kind of at a household level throughout the course of the day or the course of the year. Oh, let me go back here. So at the last meeting, the version of the proposed actions that I presented were grouped into 6 different categories. And we had a very explicit discussion, and I was very explicit that I was adding a seventh. And that when I came back, there were going to be 7 categories. Well, following this meeting and then talking with the staff advisory group, we actually took a slightly different approach with thinking about how to, we reshuffled some of the categories and really kind of regrouped them into these 5 that I currently have. And really kind of took some of the aspects that I was going to include as an additional one around solar photovoltaic systems and things like that, and really kind of took some of those topics and integrated them back in so that we figured it was better from a messaging and from a management point of view, to kind of have fewer focus areas, as opposed to continuing to just add more and more slices to the pie that we needed to keep track of. So even though there are 5 categories now, it kind of includes all of the same actions, regrouped in a new fashion. And they're kind of grouped into these 5 areas. First on policy support, second on community education, third looking at issues of energy equity and low-income households. Fourth is on contractor workforce support. And the 5th one is on the actual building upgrades that need to be made. And those first 4 then being a lot of the precursors that actually result in the improvements that get made in that 5th category. So this, okay, on this slide, these on the screen here in the room, the text is very small to read, and it was very difficult to read. All of this material has been included as part of the board packet. So these lists and these diagrams are in the packet that was distributed to this committee and is available online. And so I was not planning to go through all of these today, but you can kind of see this is an overall snapshot of then within the 5 priority areas, how I envision the actions kind of falling into those different action areas or those different priority areas. As I said, this information is included in the packet. I'm still very interested in getting feedback, any direct feedback or any direct edits. And I wanted to, instead of kind of having that conversation in kind of detail today, I wanted to make the information available. If members of this committee are able to review that document and provide any feedback, that would be fantastic. And what I have done, and I think that ties in very directly with these equity focus groups and the technical review that we have been undertaking. And I've set a preliminary deadline of next Friday, the 16th, as for when I have requested that the reviewers on the social equity and the technical review provide their comments back to me. And so that's, we do have some flexibility with that date, but that would be my kind of request to the members of this committee here. If you have a chance to review this material before next Friday, a week from now, and provide any comments back to me, that would be wonderful. The last thing I wanted to present today was to walk through some of the comments that we're getting through our equity our equity focus groups. And we've had 2 focus groups so far, and I'm expecting a wealth of additional kind of responses coming in on a 1-by-1 basis. And some of these things are I want to say I think are already common knowledge to us, but it was great in the conversations to hear them reiterated. And certainly I will try to focus in on some of kind of the nuances that I think are new. One of the key things, or I don't want to say focuses that are new, but focuses that were great to hear from an outsider's perspective, from somebody not involved with climate work, individuals not involved with greenhouse gas emissions, and looking at this action plan, much more of a human lens. And so that's actually has been very helpful. One of the key things was a recommendation to focus our decision, basically focus communicating the decisions directly to the individuals and households that are going to be impacted. Also thinking about creation of just simplified how-to guides that could be using simple language and some simple diagrams to walk people through the process. A number of recommendations here on potential community education partners. a number of government, kind of government entities, and specifically the one I wanted to call out that came up strong was looking at the unincorporated areas of the county for a number of the communities, within different supervisorial districts. They don't have city councils, they don't have elected officials themselves, other than that single supervisor. But in a number of areas of the county, there are formed municipal advisory groups, community advisory commissions, citizen advisory councils, and I know of ones in the out in the Sonoma area and for the Springs, Guerneville area, and I think there's a number of those around. So that was a recommendation there that we heard strongly to kind of work through those with thinking about outreach. The other theme that came up was really to identify community partners or government agencies that are already a trusted resource within the community. And in that case, this is the first one that's here. Department of Emergency Management is one of it's a government agency, but has become, I think, a very trusted entity within a number of communities because they're providing a very valuable service, and they have risen up and are helping people when they're in need. And so kind of based upon the past experience of emergency management, that they could be a very great partner for us. Next here, specifically on energy equity, there was really, in a number of our documents, we talk about doing a racial equity analysis or a social equity analysis on a lot of these actions. Came out in the conversation that can be all done as one, or there was a recommendation or an observation that can also be done, that there's 3 different slices to look at. That oftentimes get grouped together. One is really looking at kind of racial equity, so kind of racial and socioeconomic impacts. The second is really thinking about the benefit cost and really those the cost benefit kind of for the home for the household level. And then third is really looking at the health equity impacts and kind of the health and wellness impacts. I'm going to come back to that issue of health and wellness very strongly here in just a second. The other another key thing that came up has been that we talk about low income and wanting to help low income households. There's really is a move or an acknowledgement that low income, low to middle income, and middle income are all impacted, may have interest in making these upgrades, but may not have the funds or resources available. And so really was the encouragement to not just classify it as the lowest income individuals and households, but really to stretch a little bit and think about, well, how does that impact middle income households as well? And again, some recommendations here on thinking about additional audiences to think about and different partners, thinking about the impacts on senior citizens, impacts on those with disabilities, and specifically calling out, people that are dependent upon electric wheelchairs or other medical equipment that require electricity that are that when we talk about power outages, for them, it could be a life or death situation, where a lot of these I think about more in, I may not be able to heat my home for a few hours. For some people with medical equipment, it is a much bigger issue. Number of recommendations that have come up on working on workforce development issues. That is a whole huge conversation kind of on its own. It gets very, very broad and very, very deep, very quick. So I won't necessarily go into details there, but a number of again, recommendations on partners that we can follow up with. And on this final one here, I wanted to highlight, and I specifically wanted to end on this one before I take any comments and get into conversation. And this was a strong recommendation to really focus the messaging on, not to focus it on our common themes that we think about organizationally, not to focus on emissions or climate or decarbonization or electrification. Focus on health, focus on comfort, focus on better living conditions, focus on, especially from a messaging point of view, focus on those things that really make a difference in people's daily and daily lives. And then we're going to get the climate benefits by making these additions out implemented this well, but it's not necessarily, a household does not necessarily wake up in the morning thinking about how to reduce their emissions. They're thinking about how to, how to live their lives and how to make their lives better, and make their lives more manageable. So those are some of the themes that we've heard in the last couple of weeks, around some of these focus groups, and we'll be integrating into the, report. And so that there is what I had to present today. And more than willing to answer any questions or take any feedback or comments. So thank you.
Just go ahead. Just real quick about the slides we just watched. You mentioned they're available online. Are they going to be connected to the agenda for this meeting, or?
What is it? That's a very good point. What is available online right now or was included in the packet was the 10-page document. I will make sure that this PowerPoint presentation from today is linked online, and I don't know if we do any communication directly back out.
We could email it to the group.
So I'll make sure that both the presentation from last meeting and this one are included in that and are both posted. So.
Okay, thank you.
In response to the last line item about messaging, I would say that all of the households that we want to communicate with there's a greater diversity than might be represented there. I remember discussions years ago about how to message green building, and maybe there were identified 5 different demographics or household types, and each with their own, I don't know, a key message that would resonate with them. So for some people, not everybody, greenhouse gas emissions, climate might be the topic. For other people, it might be health, it might be cost, it might be resilience, it might be cost savings. Maybe I said that. Anyway, so different messages, no one message will work for all audiences. That's my sense of it.
Very good, thank you.
Pete, do you have that reference, or, because I have a reference I think you might be talking about. Yeah.
Long
So
gone.
we can make sure we get you
Okay.
something in that segmentation, message specificity.
And I do have some existing materials that I think follow that model that were more, that were designed specifically on messaging out to businesses. But thinking about the diversity of businesses, but I think it's the same model. I completely understand the kind of the intent of what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Neil?
Yeah, interesting to hear it. I mean, I'm very involved in the field, but I sort of get a little bit overpowered with that. But what I've been coming up with as a simple metric is the ease of plugging in. And that can go both ways. In that messaging presentation to people, it's easy to plug in, but it also comes in on the statistics of how to monitor it. So if you've got a single family home that's pretty new, it's pretty easy to find a 40-amp circuit where you can plug in. If you're an older HOA that's designated as a business with a low income, sort of population, it's just incredibly hard. The business side, first of all, at least in Cotati, they're now being designated for higher fees for being able to to plug in or to put in connectors and stuff. So how to persuade people. I have some other friends who are very much on the environmental side, but they're sort of saying, I'm just not even thinking of an electric vehicle because I live in an HOA and there's just no way that we're going to get anything to plug in there. So that aspect perhaps of a monitoring category of plugging in, even when things get successful, if you've got a larger HOA, there might be 4 or 5 slots to begin with where people can plug in, but then the next stage of lifting up will be very difficult as well. You can get a few slots to plug in. I sponsored a program at Sonoma State University with the engineering group of how to actually look at how to do a redesign for some of the systems plugging in. And you can plug in 4 vehicles into a 40-amp line and really get an average commute power connection across that 40 amp line. And so that's more of the details that's in there. So that's just a big issue. Also the aspect of plugging in an HOA is the billing side of things. And just to bring up a little bit of an interesting snippet is that, of course, Sonoma Clean Power was offering the juice boxes, which was managed by a company called NL Xway, which gave up the software of managing those boxes. And within Cotati, we do have one HOA that's quite famous. It's Co-Housing, who have installed about 20 of the NL Xway, the juice boxes, which ran into problems. But what they've done is they've come up with a open source software solution using Home Assistant software that can, for an upgrade to the box, actually manage all of these 20 boxes and provide billing. So some of the solutions that are out there for billing add another layer of cost to it. So I think there just might be a metric there of that plug-in that goes both ways. The ease of plug-in messaging to people, is it easy to plug in somewhere? And how does that scale and how do we monitor it? So just an input, but I appreciate it's a deep subject of how to scale this. Thank you.
Thank you, BC, for the presentation. I serve on Disabled Services and Legal Center here in Santa Rosa, and during the fire, we did see a lot of problems with not having any power and people dislocated. And I know PG&E is supplying us with the agency with power supplies that we hand out that do have solar, they have little solar panels with them too. But as far as reaching out, we do have the Aging and Disability Resource Expo Friday, May 23rd. I don't know if you guys are tabling there or not, but this is short notice, but we will be having one next year too. So it'd be good to reach out and get information. It's going to be at the Becoming Independent, the backdrop there. You guys know that place? So that's Friday, May 23rd. The time is 11 to 2:30. Do you want me to send that out to you guys? I'll forward that flyer out to you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I have a few, but well, great. It's the slideshow you just presented, BC, captured a number of the things that I noticed when I first looked through. But I want to elevate a few of them now. In terms of benefits and messaging, affordability is just such a key issue right now for everybody. And we have kind of structural problems in the electrification building improvement area with that. Cost of contractor services, cost of equipment, especially if tariffs are implemented, could really, and of course, escalating utility rates are becoming significant barriers to electrification in California. I didn't see a lot about affordability solutions built into the strategy. And I have some thoughts around, and these may be somewhat at odds with some of our partners and their objectives. For example, solar and battery storage at the facility, creating a degree of energy independence from our utility providers, could potentially be part of a affordability solution obviously on a building by building, parcel by parcel basis. So I'm not sure exactly where that needs to be plugged in here, but I think it's an important objective. Obviously, we talked about reliability and you captured that one already. And BART is down this morning. Reliability is an issue in our world right now. Neil, a number of people talking about transportation electrification and the kind of the nexus when you're going to bring somebody in to do what should I spend money on in my building this year? making sure that they're anticipating the transportation, electrification needs of the homeowner, the renter, the people that live in the building. So maybe it's electric bicycle, maybe it's electric wheelchair, maybe it's electric vehicle. And then hardening for resiliency of the building, particularly with the threat of wildfire and earthquake in our zones. Those are all expenses and things that we might find synergies with, to the extent that there are mandates now coming on, for example, the Zone Zero home hardening mandate. There's going to be some kind of outreach to people, and you have to do these things into your building to be compliant. Maybe there's an opportunity to partner to insert an electrification, decarbonization call to action message at the same time that those things are being distributed. And then I've got a lot of other, more nitpicky technical things that I'll follow up with you about in that technical response. But yeah, I like what's happening here, where this is going. I think it's a strong document. It's going to be helpful for the whole community.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll take any of your comments, either if you want to type them up or just hand me that document, however you'd like to pass this along.
Yeah, I think once I have the slideshow, I'll probably kind of combine my comments together and get them to you.
What I've distributed also is a PDF version. If anybody really has deep comments and wants to work it actually in commenting in Word, I can provide the Microsoft Word version if that's easier as well. So.
Wanted to add on to what he was talking about. The affordability, I think, is key across all demographics, especially now. And then within the messaging, it's important to understand how even reliability is connected deeply with affordability. So it's just a different way of a different source of energy that most people are not accustomed to. And understanding that, especially when you're talking about battery backup and the resiliency of a building should how you're generating the power or something is affected, you want to be able to still power your home and do some of the the essentials. Everybody does across demographics own a device that is reliant on a battery, and we're all well aware that that's the first thing that fails is the battery, and in some cases that's a significant cost. And so when we're talking about or messaging affordability, that covers a lot of other, not just the buy-in, but the maintenance of it. And then to end things off to it with the battery, the impact that have, or solar cells, the heavy metals in solar cells, and the mining for materials needed for batteries, what impact that has on the environment, emissions that are created mining those materials. Those are things that probably a smaller percentage of a demographic would be concerned about. But that is definitely a cost, an environmental cost that something like this that will come due at some point. and I hope that that's part of the messaging about that we're thinking about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
I also have to comment on reliability. I'm glad that you have more about it. Yeah, in this presentation, I think, than in your last one. But it's I live in Rio Negro, and it's almost nobody I know is going to electrify their home without a rock solid guarantee of some way that they can retain power, not just during a fire, not just after an earthquake, but also during a flood. We're talking about outages possibly of more than a week. I've been living there that long and I've seen 2 outages of more than a week, and floods and fires are only getting more severe. So we're not just talking about medical devices, we're not just talking about phone batteries, we're talking about electric cars. As well as cooking, we're talking about all the food going bad in the freezer and refrigerator, we're talking about clothes washing and drying. And then compounded on all of that, with our, roads, out in West County. There's, impeded access to even get, if all of your food does go bad, you can't even get to the grocery store either, or you can't get help from anybody. And now you're at home and your home is electrified because somebody in the government in Santa Rosa told you it was a good idea. And so it just, and as I said last time too, community solar, community wind, individual solar, individual wind are not options at scale in West County because of tree cover. And so, yeah. Reliability matters.
I've certainly been thinking about your comments from the last meeting quite a bit as I've been working on this last draft. Yeah.
I can tell.
So
Appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. So.
Yeah, Nick, that community does have some unique needs, and that might make your community better suited to like a microgrid solution. I know in Calistoga, they're remote and subject to lots of power saving, power shutoffs, or whatever that's called. And they now have, they think they just launched their islanding microgrid to be able to power up that area in the event they do shut the power off. They've got a hydrogen tank in addition to solar and battery. And I think they can go 5 to 9 days, depending on how aggressive the usage might need to be. So you guys might be a good candidate in that part of the county where there isn't tree cover to capture that solar and make it available to your neighborhood. Well, obviously, it's expensive and it's long term, but that's what we need to be starting to think about. So many of the rest of us, though, can't accomplish these things with the amount of square footage on a roof or a parking lot.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to, again, plug-in vehicle to the house, where you could run a freezer off the vehicle. So I think this is coming along because I was just explaining it to a friend who was trying to decide about an electric vehicle. And I don't know what's exactly on the market, but I think we should be talking about vehicle to the house, not vehicle to the grid, but vehicle to the house where you can run an extension and just plug it into the vehicle and then be able to take off sufficient power from that. But I think, again, the ease of plugging in, I'm just beating that drum, ease of plugging in different things.
And there's an affordability nexus to that as well, in that you don't need to be redundant in your battery. You have one for your car. You're also running your house off that same very large battery that's in your car.
Sorry, one more thing I wanted to add too. I know a lot of propane and natural gas companies have programs where they offer rates to communities where the rate gets cheaper the more people buy into the program. So I just mentioned that as an option for increasing affordability, also making messaging easier, because the more people you have talking to their neighbors about this, the easier it is for you.
If we're going to be including information about those kind of things, I think we need to include the dangers of having natural gas and propane in wildfires. There are significant dangers, as we found in the Palisades and the Eaton fires, from folks who had both propane and natural gas lines.
Yeah, that's something that occurred to me earlier in our discussion, is messaging and what's going to motivate people. Natural gas is dangerous inside of buildings. And we could consider, in addition to the promotional benefits of electrification, we could talk about the risks, the fear-based messaging argument of, you're poisoning your family with a natural gas stove in your kitchen. So that, what, to what degree do we want to be heavy-handed with such a message? I don't know, but it can be very motivating for behavior change.
Again, on messaging, I think it's called methane gas, brackets, natural gas, because it's, natural gas is that old messaging that's been there, whereas we really want to start talking about what's the base, the methane gas.
I have one more on messaging too. Another good point is, like, I'm too cheap to buy earthquake insurance. And if during an earthquake, if my gas line ruptures and my house burns down, I am not covered.
Right.
So that's a good point on not having a gas line in earthquake country.
You're talking earlier about permit processes, and it occurred to me, do we have streamlined permitting in all the jurisdictions for these common electrification retrofits? This came up in the national heat pump conversation about trying to make it easier for installers to just be able to not have to do permitting almost like on site remotely, show up and sell the job and be done with it the same day kind of thing, permitted. I don't know if we have anything streamlined like that in the county, or if there are different rules where you have to do discretionary approvals in certain jurisdictions.
I'm certainly not an expert in this area. I do know that there's streamlined permitting for solar PV systems
Right.
and some other types of upgrades. Which ones and in which jurisdictions, I don't know though.
Yeah, and we might defer to June with her contractor experience on some of this, whether it's premature perhaps, the state of the market to be able to do that here. But it's an issue to study, I think, in this early policy development stage.
The city of Lancaster, the mayor is great in some ways and not in others, but he's been great in this. And he's really streamlined permitting. So if we're going to look at permitting, take a look at how they've done it. He put some sort of like 1-day turnaround into force, and it's been effective apparently.
Yeah, also on the affordability of installs, I'm actually coming to the conclusion that our current distributor, manufacturer / distributor / contractor driven market for heat pump and hot water installations in particular is inherently costly. And that if we're going to be able to reach our goals, we're going to need to come up with a different installation model, particularly for lower income customers that can't afford the current business model, the markups at each of the tiers of the system I just described. So I've been trying to think if there isn't a community-based organization installation model that we might want to pilot and try to do around here in this county. So Anna's come to the table. She probably knows more about this than I do these days.
Oh, I just wanted to comment quickly for the streamlined permitting and what's going on in Sonoma County. I do want to say from Bayron and our regional standpoint, our codes and standards program does focus on permitting, and this is something that's come up throughout the entire Bay Area. And right now we're working closely with County of San Mateo. They're running a pilot to understand, conduct a landscape analysis of the permitting process, specifically for heat pumps and how to streamline that among all of their participating jurisdictions. I think right now they have 13 jurisdictions that are participating in that pilot. And so they're working on a customer or contractor perspective, and then also from the building staff perspective of how to streamline that process.
Right, because the other thing that's happening in the heat pump space heater world is the pre-charged line set.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a Mr. Cool or there's a couple of competing brands where you don't need to do the evacuation of the heat pump line. which makes it much simpler for a do-it-yourself kind of homeowner-driven install, which historically has been something we don't want people messing with refrigerants because there's such a big climate impact. But we may be getting to the point where you could do that more cheaply than having a full-blown contractor. So interesting things to be thinking about. If we're going to hit our goals, we're going to have to come up with other ways to do it affordably. I had one question about on this great matrix, this flow chart rather. Action number 5 is the home energy score evaluations. And I think that's part of the BayREN program. And historically, the energy score is a pretty dumb, not very detailed tool. And I don't know if it's changed since I looked at it. But I'm wondering if, and it's so focused, it's like, I think it's just a 10-point scale. And it may not be the right motivating scoring system to give people. And so, in my mind, the consumption index that's in the cool carbon calculator, which is not just building energy, but is transportation, goods purchased, food, services. It's a complete home carbon calculation. It's a better tool for teaching the full spectrum of decarbonization or what you need to do in your home than the home energy score is. So BayREN, I think, has been pushing this. I don't think we yet have it as a mandate in the home disclosure process, but I know there's cooperation with the realtors about it. So maybe Anna, you can speak to that as well.
Sure. And then just for the group to refresh on what the home energy score offering actually is, as Tom mentioned, it does rate a home on a score of 1 to 10. And the best analogy I have for that is it's a miles per gallon rating for your home. And so it is a standardized process throughout all participating jurisdictions. It's offered in the Bay Area, but we also have a handful of pilot jurisdictions outside of the Bay Area, including City of Davis. And what it does, I would describe it as a happy medium between a more comprehensive home analysis, which may be what you're referring to, Tom, and is a good gateway for homeowners to understand where their home currently stands in terms of their appliances. It discusses the building envelope, and then also offers a tier of recommendations on how to improve your home. And some recent additions to the home energy score include the electrification checklist, which you can work with your contractor or whoever your assessor is who's conducting your home assessment. And then we're also working on doing some geographic targeting, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, to have a third page to that report to direct you to some of the current rebates and resources for your city.
Because the other resources in your PG&E bill online is the energy checkup system that PG&E operates, which has the benefit of being very specific to your own personal usage profile. So those are the resources that I think about in terms of echoing back to the decision maker, what their options are. They all do what they do in different ways.
Yeah.
So it may, in here, I know it's just a home energy score, but that might be part of a more comprehensive education, customer education.
And I will say for Sonoma County specifically, we're really fortunate to have energy consultations available through the County of Sonoma Energy and Sustainability Team. That's one of the resources that we direct people to for the updated home energy score. And so that would allow people to bring in their home energy score, bring in their, typically they ask for 6 months of your PG&E bill history. And you can walk through that with their staff to understand a project pathway for your home and really talk through some of those things because it's complicated and many people don't understand it and they are just an abundance of knowledge and expertise and really break it down in a way that's digestible for homeowners and a good starting place. So I really couldn't recommend that resource more, but I'd be happy to do a deep dive into the home energy score at a following meeting for all of you if it's of interest and provide that updated report structure.
Yeah, I thought that's probably a good idea for us to think about that because we're all connected to our jurisdictions and maybe helping promote these services you just described.
Yeah.
Be a good idea. I was curious what Action 20 Innovative Program Design and Evaluation. What do you have in mind there?
So that I chose to use, that is a catch-all category.
Yes.
To what I use to group a number of the project proposals or program proposals that are beyond our resources and capabilities in the near term. But that may have very valid reasons that we would want to look at them. Things about doing like a countywide building stock and energy use analysis. Thinking about developing turnkey installation programs, which I think may be along what you were just talking about as far as like changing the installation model.
Yeah. Right.
You know, those are not programs that we're going to pick up and develop in the next 3 months. So that was my intent to kind of make sure those ideas had a landing spot, even though in reality, we're not able to follow through and implement them in the short term. So.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else on this? Any more feedback? Neil?
So just on the Action 19, non-residential commercial upgrades, I think that's a big area for sort of synchronization with the solar cycle. That, I mean, there was a study done that if we take electric vehicles, we all come home and on the commute, plug them in, and then they all switch on at 10 p.m. when it gets cheap. It's just going to take down the network. I think it was a Stanford study of it. And the way around that really is that you drive to work, should be able to plug in. And when there's solar availability, I mean, this is going a bit further about where there's some you're plugging in for 8 hours at work or 9 hours. So this, the non-residential commercial upgrades, I think should have some sort of emphasis for people just driving to work and upgrading when the sun, or being able to power when the sun's up. So the big systems that I've seen right now, SSU that's going in, there's no plugins, and other places which are being put around. So have we got something where somebody is doing a big facility, Kaiser has put stuff in, there's no plugins for vehicles that are in there. So anyway, that's just, I think there's a big hole in that area at the moment. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of what's the question I'm asking. But I think it's, will there be more plugins in the non-residential capacity that can fit in with the solar generation?
Well, right now, as I understand it, we have minimum EV charging requirements for new projects, part of the CalGreen code, I believe. And that's been, the numbers of units and the number of pre-wired, not necessarily have the plug in there, but pre-wiring the parking lot, or at least conduiting the parking lot in anticipation of that need. I think that's already in new building code. Of course, if 306 passes, who knows what's going to happen in terms of more, keeping that every 3-year ratcheting up of the requirements for new buildings. But there is an opportunity in existing non-residential parking lots, shopping centers, existing parking lots for larger employers in particular. It might be a carrot kind of incentive program. I would think they're thinking about this at the utilities as well, but maybe As just as a load management, as you said, for time of day optimization.
And if there's any sort of digging up, to put in the conduits is the most valuable thing to actually have for any upgrades in the future. I've just seen a Luther Burbank upgrade locally where they dug up the sidewalks inside a one on East Cadati Avenue, but there's no conduits have gone in, which so whether or not we raise that just in the process and say, could you put in conduits, or would it be easy to put in conduits as well while you're doing something, or just to make sure it's all pre-conduited for future wiring? But that's just a general question.
Keep going on thinking about vehicles. We have the bicycle e-bike program. We piloted an e-bike program here in the county. Sonoma Clean Power did. I think the state has just postponed their incentives. We're going to release a bunch of e-bike incentives last week, and it got pulled. They'll be coming again soon, supposedly. Are we doing enough in this is transportation, so it's not necessarily strictly building issues, but I think about the need to electrify transportation at a building. We've been talking about EV primarily, but we may find that bicycles are the more cost-effective building transportation nexus. So just keep that in mind, because I think there's been so much push by the EV manufacturers, and car ownership may not be such a big deal as it is currently in the future.
I would just say to affirm that transportation and building energy use are two separate things, but on my PG&E bill, my transportation costs are mixed and merged with building energy use. They're not disaggregated.
And if we're really thinking about affordability, this is where I think we start to encourage and motivate people toward lower cost lifestyle solutions, and maybe being car free, using electric network transportation, Uber and Lyft style solutions when you need that type of use. Maybe a viable public transportation system and an e-bike, you can get a lot of mobility for most people out of that. So that might be the more affordable way to adapt to the next 10, 20 years. And so we've got to keep looking to the future, not to the past. All right, we do a call for public. If there's no further discussion here, any public comment? I see one.
Steve, are you going? Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, Steve Pierce from. No, thanks a lot for this effort, and I'll be following up with more detailed written comments. There was a couple of things that I want to bring out, and looking back at past RCPA efforts. Some of you in the room have been around long enough to remember the Shift Sonoma County plan. And one thing that looking at that versus looking at this plan is there were actually quantifiable objectives in it. And I find that pretty lacking in this. And not only are we need quantifiable objectives, but we need to see, well, what's the impact if we achieve those quantifiable objective results? How much methane are we reducing? In what categories are we reducing it? And then I think there's also by far and away, the biggest impact coming at us is the Bay Area Quality Management District's rules. Start kicking in 2027. It will far outpace anything we can do separate from those rules. Every water heater, storage water heater that fails in 2027 in the Bay Area is going to have to be replaced with a low NOx, meaning electric, and hopefully meaning heat pump water heater. That's huge. You know, in terms of like government efforts, it just, you know, it pales in comparison to that ongoing yearly replacement of failed units. And I think we need to not only call that out in the document, but make it as a kind of a central organizing principle. Because once again, it's huge. 2 years after that, it then applies to space heating. And, you know, how we organize ourselves to have both the workforce ready for that initial 2027 date and then following up for the next one for space heating is key. And Tom's point of, you know, it's almost unaffordable. And that is a really big issue. And there's an out on this requirement. You can say, I'm going to replace my storage water heater with an on-demand gas. That's one of the ways you can get around these requirements. Certainly that's better. It's like 40% energy savings for on-demand gas versus a storage water heater.
That's not viable for many single-family residential customers.
Right, you have to replace with a huge gas line pipe, so it'll end up costing people probably more than a heat pump.
That's right.
So there's a lot of issues that come along with these requirements, and flushing that out in more detail and estimating what kind of impacts that'll have will be key. Thanks. Oh, and just follow up to the home energy score. If you look back in the history, you know, Berkeley started this, but what they started with in 1980 was actually when you sell a house, you have to do minimum energy conservation efforts. You had to have somebody come out and look at the place. Your attic is insulated this way, you know, various measures in the house. And then about 30 years after that, the realtor lobby was strong enough to change that. So it no longer were you required to do measures, but you just had to do an energy score. Now, I don't think we're going to be in a position where politically we can say you have to do these measures upon sale. It'd be probably a heavy lift to get through realtors just to do the home energy score. So but really, we want people, instead of spending $200 to $500 for a home energy score, you know, maybe you should be spending on insulation instead. Thanks.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. No further public comment.
Thank you, everyone. This has been a very helpful conversation. Thank you.
Dane is going to give us an update on the travel demand management plan.
Share my screen here. All right, thank you so much. Recognizing we have a limited amount of time, I'm going to breeze through these slides, and I would like to follow up next week with an emailed document to you all for review. We're actually coming to this committee before we have the document, just because of the timing of the committee. It's a little early, but I wanted to give an overview, take this opportunity to give an overview of the plan and let you all know that it's out there and will be available for review through from next week through May 23rd. So I'm just gonna try to hit on a few of these key slides, and I'll kind of breeze through the others. So transportation demand management includes coordinated strategies to change travel behaviors, increase the attractiveness of various travel options, and contribute to an environment that is suitable for lower rates of vehicular travel. So through this project, we are striving to develop a countywide strategic transportation demand management plan that includes recommendations for context-specific, non-infrastructure strategies to reduce single occupancy vehicle travel and greenhouse gas emissions. So I want to also highlight the non-infrastructure strategy piece of this. We're really focusing on programs rather than infrastructure. So for example, rather than building carpool lanes, it would be things like designing programs supporting programs that would match people for carpool or vanpool or provide incentives. Instead of, building bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, it could be things like programs like bike share or secure bicycle storage. And similarly, rather than things like fixed route transit, it could involve programs that provide the first last mile connection or additional incentives for transit. We learned through this plan, kind of identified some key challenges and opportunities. Challenges in Sonoma County are kind of this convenience culture. We have a very high rate of vehicle ownership and drive alone rates, as well as abundant free parking that make it very easy to drive. There are some limitations to transit service, just being a very large county with spread out population and limited funding for transit service makes the service really focused around the commute hours and the population centers. There are clearly some equity gaps in terms of where transportation is provided and some transit dependent populations kind of outside of the urban cores facing real mobility challenges. Some of the opportunities that we've identified include a large number of short trips that could be changed to have a large impact. So 60% of trips in Sonoma County are under 5 miles, which do make those ideal for switching to biking, walking, or first last mile solutions. Our flat terrain and fairly mild climate make it more appealing to use active transportation in this county. And there's also opportunities to leverage policies that to transform land use, like parking limits, transit-oriented development to really shift transit travel behavior to more sustainable modes. I'm going to kind of skip through some of the background and how we developed this plan, as well as the kind of our engagement process, but we did have a full engagement process. I'll just highlight a few things that came out of our engagement process and here. So one thing that came out was kind of just feedback that the transit system can seem complicated, especially for new users. Routes are sometimes don't seem very direct for where people are coming from and going to, and the multiple operators kind of add a layer of complexity. Frequency and reliability are definitely an issue for a number of trips, and kind of really relying on transit for those trips. Affordability came up, as well as lack of quality active transportation infrastructure in many areas. And then behavioral barriers, that's kind of ties back to that convenience and car culture, and certain perceptions about transit. And the kind of desire for more first and last mile connections also came up through our engagement. I am going to kind of skip through some of these. We did an analysis of a number of different strategies, and we kind of used both alignment with the goals for this plan, which are mobility outcomes, sustainability, and equity outcomes, as well as the deliverability. So really looking at how challenging it might be to deliver some of the strategies and cost. So kind of how deliverable it is with the funding that might be available. So we took kind of all of the feedback that we received, as well as that prioritization and evaluation to come up with some near-term, midterm, and long-term actions. So for the near term, we would really like to start by building awareness of this plan and the high priority strategies that have come up through it. There was definitely a need identified for better marketing of the existing TDM programs that are out there, and really tying that with a number of different travel options. So developing a TDM marketing strategy is kind of in the near-term list. We did hear a lot about first last mile connections and improving that. So we would like to coordinate and collaborate with the relevant partners on first last mile priorities. And these could include things like shuttles, transportation network companies, so kind of Uber, Lyft programs, and expansion of micromobility. Coordinating with partners and agencies to promote some of the financial incentives that are available right now for transit, and kind of really make a bigger push on those existing programs, kind of while keeping an eye out for other opportunities to kind of broaden those programs. We have an emergency ride home program that doesn't run as smoothly as it could, and we would really like to look for opportunities to enhance that program and include that in the marketing strategy as well. Promoting kind of technical assistance resources that are available through the region for TDM supportive land use and parking policies. This is something that we do to some extent, but would like to kind of sharpen our tools and how we do that. And then developing a TDM funding plan and program for near and midterm actions. In the midterms, or sort of next 2 to 3 years, we have the recommendations include establishing a kind of countywide TDM roundtable to really discuss all the different efforts that are going on and make sure that there's coordinated communication and marketing around those. Establish countywide TDM data standards for evaluation. We had developed a employer TDM toolkit through the Shift Sonoma County plan that someone mentioned earlier. So kind of updating that and using it to expand employer-based commute programs, supporting and in general also supporting the expansion of employer-based commute programs. Also supporting and promoting kind of technical assistance around resources for implementing parking pricing, and then soliciting applications for a funding program for various TDM strategies that were identified in the near-term actions. I see all of these things probably carrying over like past the near and midterms, but in addition to the things mentioned earlier, some of the things kind of a little bit further down the line would be to design and brand a countywide TDM recognition program to kind of support that marketing effort, and then to regularly review and update the strategic TDM plan. We are taking a presentation of this to all of our committees this month, and then plan to take a draft final plan to our board in June. And so with that, the draft plan, like I mentioned, will be posted on our website next week. Happy to work with Ross and BC to send that out to you all. And we are looking for feedback on it by May 23rd. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have any feedback for Dana at this time? Yep.
Yes, hi. Really nice to see it. And I've certainly been working in Cotati, which has been very helpful with on how to really work with new builds that before there's an occupancy permit, any infrastructure for walking is very, very apparent. So, you know, that somebody who's, if we've got a new build and there's good connections locally, that any pedestrian infrastructure is very, very obvious for anybody moving in there so that they can say, wow, look at this, I can get a place, you know, it can be part of the sales of that technique, and really appreciate the support that we've had for this event that's going on, or this process in Cotati with some things. The other area that I got a comment on might be what are the destinations within Sonoma County, and I've just recently come across one of them, that's the Kaiser facility in Bicentennial Way. And in fact, my wife's gone up there today on the bus from Cotati. The Kaiser Permanente parking there is absolutely maxed out, you know, and there's a lot of people pulsing in and out. But if there was a way of really trying to emphasize and educate people, I mean, those are the wrong words. If there was a way of sort of saying, hey, I can get up to Kaiser, if I'm living near 101, Golden Gate 101, from Petaluma up through Cotati, there's a very easy stop. It does involve a 1/4 mile walk across there, across the freeway to get there, but that's a destination that it's just how to encourage people to start thinking about, or how to create maybe stories that, hey, I was going to Kaiser and I could just get on the bus and get up there. It's always going to be slower than jumping into a vehicle and going there. But if you've got vehicle parking at the far side, and that's very expensive to upgrade what they got. I mean, they've got a really big parking facility there, but it gets maxed out very quickly. The other thing might be on the Golden Gate 101, actually to have a stop on Bicentennial Way outside Kaiser, so that the 101 bus, as it's going north, just pulls off and goes a little bit east before possibly doing a U-turn. I don't know how that actually works, and then going west towards the station that's on the other side. So that's just, I mean, it's how to, I think from what I'm hearing from people, it's how to build in the social side of using the transport, that it makes it easier to use it somehow. Or I've seen friends where, hey, we've got on the train and gone down to San Rafael, and there's a party going on the train. We've enjoyed it as a group, you know, so maybe there has to be a higher social level of some sort, first of all, where you say, hey, it could be fun going down. A mum's group. I've seen mums groups that have done that, or family group with things, but we've also done it as a group ourselves. We've had a meeting down in San Rafael and just got down the train. But anyway, nice to see. I mean, I really support it, but how we get there is a real challenge. Thank you.
Further comments?
Thank you, Dana. Have you guys done any focus groups with the writers around here?
We did some focus groups for the plan, not particularly focused on transit riders, but kind of broad set of various different industries and community-based organizations.
I've been part of a couple focus groups, and it's amazing how rich of information you can get from folks that actually ride these systems. So I just would encourage perhaps. And with a gift card, you do get some participation.
Yes, yeah, we did do that for one of our focus groups. So.
To pile onto that, I have a wife who works in San Rafael, and she would love to ride the train more, but it ends before she has to come home sometimes. And so I don't know if you pilot different hours, because I also know some folks who live in the city or who work in the city but who live out here who would like to take it home, but it's also not at a convenient times, and it doesn't go early enough for their commute.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, in order for any mass transit to compete with a car-centric society that California has always been, you have to increase the frequency of availability, because you have to make it just so easy that people start to think of the benefits of, oh man, I don't have to concentrate on driving. I can read. I can just chat. I can watch a movie or whatever. It has to be just a lot easier. With regards to trying to get like healthcare facilities, adding stops and whatnot, my thoughts on that are folks do not want to have any more delay between them and their healthcare. So after perhaps waiting for several months for an appointment, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to wait much longer for a bus. So they're going to absolutely get in a car and then pack that parking lot. So the only way to again, to compete against that is to add that frequency of availability, or encourage some sort of, shuttle or something like that for healthcare facilities. Thanks.
Anything else? I have a few words. So I'm thinking about what kinds of larger scale state or region policies are likely to help us or push us backward on this. And I know we have some pretty aggressive goals at the MTC level. We know that road use charges are probably coming just because we won't be able to pay to fix our roads if we don't have some kind of pricing on our roads. So this idea that those things I think will be contributing to progress on the cultural shift around getting people to accept paying for transportation, what is currently a freeway or a free parking. And we know that most effective TDM programs are the ones that really cost, paid parking, or in New York City's very successful congestion management program this past year. So even with those state and region level policies, though, we're still going to have the Sonoma City problem of short trips between your house and the grocery store and your school. So that seems to me to be the thing that SCTCA could be focused the most on, is supporting the jurisdictions and solutions there. And it is politically difficult to put a price on something that people are used to not having to pay for. So that's what I look forward to this plan really helping with. And I guess there could be carrots. I like the recognition program. I think that's a good one. To recognize those jurisdictions that are willing to do it, put a price on the parking space, and give them give them credit for doing so. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much.
All right, so without further comments around the room, let's ask for one more.
Sorry, there was one I noted down and didn't bring up, but it would be good for like the Redwood bike share if Google suggested it. So for the last mile tracking, and I've been keeping an eye on it, you know, just that all the options come up for Google because that's how people are navigating. That's how I navigate and look at something. But if I'm going to go somewhere, it should be suggesting. I mean, I rode to the bike station and took the train up today on my own bike, but I think that's what should come up with, or would be beneficial if it came up, if Redwood Bike Share was integrated in with that. And I don't know what that would take to do it, but just thank you.
And to pile onto that, if that could be connected to like the trains are coming, like you could hit this train at this time or this bus, you know, like full integration.
Yeah, this is something I was, you know, I've talked to Eddie Cummins about at SMART, that, you know, there are many jurisdictions in the county that don't directly benefit from SMART, even though they pay into the system with their sales tax, because we're so remote. Sonoma Valley being a good example, Sebastopol being another, and West County. And, you know, apparently the sales tax extension is polling well right now, but there hasn't been any opposition testing really of an opposition message to my knowledge. But I was thinking that maybe they could put something in the sales tax measure that would be a sweetener for those jurisdictions that are currently sort of left out and which would help me get on board in my jurisdiction, solve some of this first mile, last mile connectivity to the SMART train problem that Neil's referring to with Kaiser specifically, and he's mentioning as well. I'm not sure if that's directly TDM related, but that might be a partner to talk to and a possible funding solution as well. You know, it's what's great about our new general manager there. He's not that new any longer, but he does have a good understanding of that, the importance of that first mile, last mile, and the pilots at Larkspur and at the airport apparently are successful, is what I think he's been telling us. So we're getting ridership, and that's making it easier for people to take the train to the ferry. You don't have to walk that extra length now with the little shuttle that does that for you. And the same with the airport. So we might have more of those coming in the future. So just an idea. All right, so we'll go to public comment on this item if there is any. In which case we don't have anyone online, so we will wrap up. I believe that's it. We have a staff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, item 7.
That's right.
So we'll do just a quick RCPA update. I think Anna may have something on Bayron that she wants to share, but before that, I wanted to just let the group know briefly that RCPA is partnering with the County of Sonoma and Latino service providers on a countywide EV charging plan. And we expect that effort to kick off probably in the June, July timeframe. And this is funded by a grant from Caltrans that the county received. So we're really excited to be able to develop that plan, and it will build on the work that RCPA did with the SHIFT plan and really focus in on providing charging to multifamily residences and other places that are lacking charging today. So wanted to share that with the group, and we'll definitely bring an update to you when that project kicks off.
Tanya, I didn't get the name of the grant funding agency.
It's a Caltrans Sustainable Communities Grant.
Great. And do we have anything written on that I could share at my Wednesday night meeting?
I could share something, a project description with
Great.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. That'd be great. Anna?
Thanks. I'll be pretty brief with my updates just for the sake of time. One thing I did want to highlight is Bayron's 2024 annual report is available and ready to be reviewed. And in the coming weeks, we'll have some county-specific metrics for Bayron for 2024 that I'll be able to share out with the group. And then I'm also going to be working with the jurisdiction staff to provide city and town specific data for them to review and identify some opportunities to improve participation across our programs. So looking forward to working with your staff on that. And then since we last met, we had our multifamily property owner and manager workshop, which we had really high attendance on. We had presentations from our Bay Area Multifamily Building Enhancement Program, or BAMBI Bayren program. We also had presentations from Sonoma Clean Power and I believe Home First as well, which was really exciting. We had 16 attendees there, which for a property manager workshop was pretty good turnout. So we're looking forward to having another workshop in late summer. And right now we're connecting with housing authorities throughout several of the jurisdictions to identify some partnership opportunities there. But this is going to be an ongoing effort and priority through the end of the year. So we're looking forward to that. And one thing to highlight specifically for Sonoma County for Bayron, we are going to be focusing on smaller properties, though all properties are available to participate in BAMBI. But we've identified a need for 25 or less unit buildings that require more of a hands-on process. And so we'll be having our county staff available throughout the entire process for those property owners for a site visit, a phone call. If they have any questions, we do have very comprehensive technical assistance support through the program. I always think it's helpful to have someone local that you can just call and ask your questions for. So we've had a pretty successful effort for that just in the past few weeks with 3 site visits so far. And then one other thing I wanted to highlight is kicking off in June, we'll be having our commercial program relaunch with expanded program eligibility. Previously, our Bayron Business program served specifically hard to reach businesses which needed to be located in a disadvantaged community, which for Sonoma County had pretty limited reach in who we're able to access, but I'm happy to share that through working with the program leads, we were able to expand eligibility. So now our criteria to participate in the program is having 25 or less employees, English as a second language, renting or owning the building, and of course, a specific focus on working with any businesses located on or operated by tribal communities. And we'll be launching on-the-ground canvassing effort starting in June for that, as well as partnering with a handful of CBOs to really focus on our Spanish-speaking communities specifically. So looking forward to that and providing you all some updates.
Great. And there'll be, when that rolls out, there'll be information in the newsletter and.
Yes, and I believe we'll actually be starting in Sonoma, specifically the Springs.
Excellent.
For our
Excellent.
canvassing effort. Yeah.
We'll do what we can to get the word around about that.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Andy.
Cool Petaluma has started a new cool business. Have you connected with them about that?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. We would love to do that. And also one thing I forgot to mention, we will also be launching our Bayron refrigerant replacement program, which is very exciting. And it's rolling out in the coming weeks now. Sonoma County is going to be one of the counties that'll be piloting this program. And I know specifically for Petaluma, there's an action in the blueprint that specifically calls out this program. So we're looking forward to working with Petaluma staff on that. But more information to come. We'll be doing kind of a co-marketing for both Bayron Business and the Bayron Refrigerant Replacement Program. Like many programs that use IOU funds, CPUC funds, you cannot double dip for that. And so we'll be working with businesses to identify which program there is a better fit for them. So yeah.
Like grocery stores and stuff.
Grocery store, it's going to be, yeah, the food sector, and then also the floral sector is a big focus for the program. So
Yeah, there's a particularly noisy compressor I walked by on one of the streets in the Springs. I'm gonna go talk to them for you.
yeah, send them our way.
All right, so Great, great discussion, good feedback, lots going on. Anything from the public on this last item? Seeing none. We can, any announcements? Any announcements around the table? Very well, then we can adjourn. Look at this.
Hey, Tony. Do you know what why they're rehearing the AB 306?
No, I got some stuff, I actually got some stuff done.
Okay.
Uh,